and we are going to be working with a fun layout that you can make with all kinds of designer paper that you're going to love to make over and over and over again, and they'll all look different. I pulled out some colors that I have, or some paper that I haven't used before. So all of the measurements to make today's card will be on my blog tomorrow. So my blog is over at www.designwithjo.ca, and you can get all the measurements there, and there will also be an edited version of this video as well. So I took two pieces, okay, and we are doing a layout today. Now a layout is a sketch or a template. It can be called different things, but what it is just a design idea that when you switch out and use your own stamps, your own paper, your own dies, you're going to get a multitude of different ideas, and they're going to look different. So what I also have is a piece of our thick basic white, and I've just scored that in half, and I'm just going to firm that up with my bone folder. You always want to really crisp your edge as much as possible up here. Make it as much of a knife edge as possible, because then it's going to stand up well for whoever's going to put this on the mantle in their home. Now, I don't often do this, but it is a great way to get a background on a card that's just a little bit different. So rather than just using a piece of Pool Party for our card base, I'm using white, and I'm going to glue down the designer paper. So whatever designer paper you have that you want to use, it's going to become the entire front of your card. Now we could go for this one too, but I'm going for Pool Party today, which is one of my favorite colors. How about you? Are you a Pool Party fan, or are you a little too washed out for me? So when you're putting this one down, you just sort of have to be careful that you get it completely over the front of the card. And if you've cut it properly, and I can see that mine is very slightly bigger. See here, it's very slightly bigger, so I'm going to pull in my trimmer right now, and we are just going to trim that off just a tiny bit. So because I want to be able to see this side peeking at me, I'm just going to put this in. I'm going to put it in so that the end of the card sits in the channel right here. So my blade is going to go right in the middle of this channel. So I am just going to move it so that my white is ending in the middle of the channel, and then I'm going to just cut that straight down, and I have a tiny little, can't get it up, a tiny little piece that came off the bottom. Okay, so that just is a sort of a professional finish to your card. So that's the first part of our card. Now the second part we're not going to put on right away, but we are going to do some stamping on a piece of vellum. So if you have vellum cardstock in your stash of things, and lots of us do, it is a plasticky kind of paper actually. It's opaque, meaning that you can see through it, but it's sort of cloudy looking. And it is great for a bunch of different things, but how we're going to use it today, when you put it over designer paper, it just softens the look of it. So if you have super bright designer paper, purples and pinks and bright greens, then it will soften those down and tone them down a little bit too. So it's just going to tone down our little flowers a little bit. I'll show you the back side of this one, which is one of those weaves. But I think I want Pool Party on Pool Party. But we are first going to stamp on this. So we're going to stamp some words here. So we are going to put colored ink on top of it, and we are going to emboss it with clear embossing powder. So our clear embossing powder, I'm just going to pull in right here, but we don't need a Versamark. So because this paper is not absorbent, one thing you can stamp on top of it with our classic inks, but it's going to take a really, really long time to dry. But that is not a negative when we want to use it for what we're going to do today. And I think what we're going to do is we are going to use the pretty peacock on top of here, because what happens when we put it on top of our vellum is it's going to go just a little bit lighter than what it actually is. So, okay, so we're going to ink this up. Now I want my words to be towards middle top, I guess. I don't want them to be right in the middle. So I'm going to use my lines here on my glass mat. If you were doing this at home and you don't have a glass mat, put a little piece of grid paper on here, or you can just eyeball what the center is. Okay, so we're going to ink that up again. Try and get this nice and straight on here. I'm looking at it sort of a little crooked, but you want to be a little careful putting it down because it could be a little more slippy than your other papers. Okay, so I've got my ink on there. You don't have to be especially quick here because that ink is going to take a while to dry. So I'm just going to put my clear right over top. When you do that, you lose some of your color a little bit, but that's okay. It's going to come back. So our heat tool has two settings, 1 and 2. Higher and lower intensity of heat is what that's for, and how much actually comes out of the tip. One great thing about our heat tool is that it is covered here so that if you happen to touch it, you're not going to burn yourself, and it has the little leg so that it will stand up. Okay, so we are going to use it on number 1 in order to heat emboss our words, but we're first going to heat up on number 2. So I like just to get it going quicker on number 2, and I can just, oh, it's actually, that's sort of nice. When you have cool fingers, that's sort of nice. And then when it's up to temperature, I'm going to bring it back to number 1. Whoops, 1. And when I do that, the reason why is I don't want to warp my vellum. And if I have it at too high of a temperature, so if you have a heat tool that's really hot, and sometimes you wonder why your vellum is getting a little bit wobbly after you heat it, that could be why. So if that's the case, what you want to do with the heat, if it's hot, is turn it away, turn it on. Turn it away, turn it on, if you have one that is really hot, okay? But we're lucky we have one that isn't super hot. So I'm just going to check it, and you can just check it in the light and see if there's any sort of dark areas. And when I do that, I can see it's still dark down there. So I'm just going to keep going. You can do it from the back as well. It will heat it up. But when you're going at a temperature of, or number 1, then it's not going to actually warp that paper. Okay, let's give it another little check. Looks like everything's nice and shiny. So you can see that it's just gone slightly a little less dark than the stamp pad itself. We are going to take it, put it right over top so you can see how that little bit darker shows up a little bit better right on top of your flowers. Now, one thing that happens here is that vellum, everybody, you probably know, when you put glue behind it, you can see through it, right? So we're going to use a couple little tricks to try and stop it from showing. Okay, so we are going to put this along the bottom. So I'm going to cut it just a little bit wider than the bottom. And then I'm also going to cut another one that's about 4 or 5 inches. Okay, so we're going to, first of all, I'm going to glue this down. I'm going to glue it down. I'm going to put a strip of glue underneath here that our ribbon is going to hide. Okay, so that's the first thing I'm going to do. And I'm just going to put a little, I'm going to try and get it straight so I can line it up here again. And I just want a little bit. I don't want too much. And this, oh, there we go. Wasn't wanting to come out, but now it's coming out. Okay, so you don't want too much, but we want enough for it to glue down. So go ahead and stick that down. Okay, it's not going to stick all the way because we only have glue down at the bottom. But now we're going to turn it over, and I'm going to put, oh, where's my bottom? I've forgotten now. There it is there. So I'm going to take some of our seal, and I'm just going to put it along the bottom. If you don't want to use your seal, you could use just some tape here. Okay, and then you're going to take that ribbon and you're going to cover up where that glue is. Okay, and then you have a pretty solid piece there. I'm going to glue this down now. I know we're not done, but don't worry. I'm going to glue this down on top of our entire card. But first I'm going to take a little bit of this ribbon off. There. You don't need quite that much. Okay, so let's glue this down. Again, remember that this is just a layout that you can use over and over again. So put glue right on top of your ribbon so the entire thing is going to stick. And I want that down. I don't want it to be right in the middle. Okay, so it's not right in the middle. So I've got a little less at the top than I do at the bottom. Just something from a layout perspective, if you have more at the bottom, it's going to be a little bit more pleasing to look at. I'm going to take this piece of ribbon, and I hope I gave myself enough, and I'm going to slide it through the underneath the other ribbon, and then I'm just going to knot it. Okay, so I'm just going to knot it like you're tying one knot. You don't have to make it more than one. And you want to tie it fairly tight. And when you do, then you can just trim these guys off and you have a beautiful tie that goes the way that you want it to. Okay, so you have your ends going this way. We are going to use the pearls for the rest of the card, and we are going to use the small pearls. Okay, so I'm going to pick those up with my Take Your Pick tool, and we're going to go for 4 of them down here. Now I am just eyeballing where these are going. So I could have put this onto my grid paper to begin with and put 4 little dots with my pencil on where these were going to go, but I didn't. So we are just eyeballing. And remember, these are handmade cards. Okay, so there's our dots. Now what we're going to do is we are going to take a glue dot. So I take my glue dots, I put a little ribbon on it so that it holds it together. Keep them out of the box. I just keep them with my, my glue holder here. And so we are going to pick up a dot. I'm going to roll it a little bit because this dot is bigger than that embellishment. So I'm going to roll it a little bit, and I can actually take it with my fingers as long as I don't touch it too much. And I'm going to put it right in behind. So let's start with this guy right here and put it right in behind. Do that 4 times. Okay, so roll it a little bit, take it off with your fingers. Try not to take too much on your fingers because it will pick up the oils from your hands and then it will lose its stickiness. And we don't want to do that. We want it to be stuck down. And I'm going to do the same thing. Oh, that one didn't roll. Do the same thing for the 2 bottom ones. They won't need it quite as much. In fact, I could probably get away with not putting them down here because our glue is right underneath here, but I think I will, just to finish off the card. And the last one. Okay, so as long as you don't touch it too much, you still got lots of stick on there. These are really good for stickiness. Okay, and now that I have all of them, I'm just going to press them all down. Okay, so there's your card. Now let's just see if we have any embellishments that might work to decorate this card. So you could just be done like this, okay? Or we can add a little something extra. So these are the dies that come with the Stippled Rose bundle. So these are some that I've cut out, and I have cut out some flowers. I've cut out one of the leaf patterns, which might be a bit big, and I have cut out this leaf. Get that one off of there. It's a piece of white in behind. But I have a couple of these flowers as well. So we could just put some of these flowers here, which probably would be enough just to decorate the card. These guys here, I would have to cut them down, I would think, because I'm thinking that they're a little bit too big. So I'm going to make an executive decision here, and we are going to use those guys. I'm going to glue them down. I'm going to glue 2 here, and they match the paper underneath, which is great. And I'm going to glue 1 there. On this guy, before I put him down, I'm just going to give him a little curl. Just a little curl with my bone folder, just to add a little bit extra to him. I'm overlapping it slightly. It's not exactly the same as that one. And down here. So this is a pretty monochromatic, same thing. I'm going to give it a little curl, I think. So just a way that you can add a little bit of interest to your card. Now you do want to let those sort of set up a little bit. And I think I'm just going to put one pearl down here just to finish it off. Okay. And it's just going to decorate this piece. Now this is not going to stick right away because it's on top of glimmer paper, so I'm going to carefully put it down there and we're going to let it dry. Okay, so there's our card, and that's all there is to the card. And when you use a white card underneath, then you're ready to go right away. Okay, so this is a super simple layout. It's quick and easy. If you find that the ribbon you have is a little too rough and it doesn't want to sit in here in the bow, then I would just take another one of these glue dots take your pick tool and slide it underneath the knot. Okay, and that will actually hold it in place. So I have another piece of our paper here. I have our basic white envelope. I'm going to put a little bit of liquid glue on the envelope. This is the quickest way you can get a matching envelope. And make sure your glue goes all the way out to the edges as much as possible. And then just take your piece of paper, and I line up one edge. It doesn't matter which one. I usually end up lining up the right edge and line it up with the top fold of the envelope as well. And you might think, well, you know, why would I do that to send it through the mail? They come through the mail beautifully, so you don't have to worry about it getting wrecked in the mail. I have not had one get wrecked in the mail. I don't think I have anyway. Maybe someone can tell me if any that I've sent. So then I should go ahead and tell you what I'm doing. So then I'm taking just a pair of scissors, and I'm going for a longer shank of scissors that I have, just because it makes it a little easier to cut. You can certainly use your smaller Stampin' your paper snips. They'll work fine. And then you just trace around with your scissors. So you could trace around with a pencil first if you want, but hey, we're living on the edge. We don't need to. Okay, and just go all the way around. Try not to cut any of the white off. And then we have a matching envelope that's going to go with our card. Thanks very much for joining me. Please like the video and subscribe if you'd like to. Also join my email list where you can get exclusive ideas from me every week. Thanks very much. Have a great paper crafting day.